Welcome to Crimes of Passion. Subscribe now to explore true crime stories. At the center of this tragic story are three characters whose fates are closely linked: Oliver Holbrook, a charismatic local businessman; Tyler Tanner, a dedicated elementary school teacher; and Claire Reeves, a newcomer with a mysterious past. Their fates collide in a perfect storm of desire, jealousy, and deceit that ultimately leaves two dead and the third changed forever. Born and raised in Millbrook, Oliver Holbrook is the only child of Robert and Elizabeth Holbrook. From an early age, he showed the potential for success. His father, a well-known local lawyer, taught him a tenacious work ethic and unwavering ambition. His mother, a former beauty queen who became a socialite, taught him charm and social skills. Oliver excelled in both academics and sports, captaining his high school football team, serving as student body president, and graduating with honors. After high school, he attended an Ivy League university to study business and economics. However, there is a darker side to Oliver. Behind his charming smile is a calculating man who craves control. He is adept at identifying and exploiting the weaknesses of others, and he views relationships as transactions, always looking for ways to profit from them, both in business and in his personal life. Despite his career success, Oliver is never satisfied, and he craves constant recognition and attention, a need that manifests itself in a series of romantic conquests. As he gets older, he feels the pressure to settle down, realizing that marriage would enhance his image as a pillar of the business world and community. So he enters into a relationship with Tyler Tanner and Claire Reeves. Taylor is the perfect wife, while Claire represents excitement and passion. Taylor Tanner is the typical girl next door, growing up in Millbrook, the middle of 5 children. Her father is a well-loved family doctor in town, and her mother is a long-time volunteer at the local animal shelter. Taylor grew up in a warm and stable environment that shaped her compassionate and helpful personality. After completing her schooling, she became a third-grade teacher at Millbrook Elementary School. She first met Oliver at a charity event to raise funds for the school's new library and was attracted to his charm and confidence. Their romance quickly developed into a fairy tale romance, which made Taylor, who had been living a simple life, deeply fall in love with it and believe that he had found his soul mate. Claire Reeves came to Millbrook like a gust of wind, stirring up this quiet town with her mysterious past and charming temperament. Unlike Taylor and Oliver, Claire is an outsider who grew up in foster families all over New York State. Her childhood was full of instability and loneliness, making her a complex and unpredictable person. Despite all the challenges, Claire is smart and ambitious. She escapes the chaos in her personal life through academics and eventually wins a scholarship to study psychology at a prestigious university in New York City. After graduation, she worked as a marketing executive in Manhattan, but her personal life was a series of short and turbulent relationships. Each failed relationship made Claire feel more empty and longing for connection. After a particularly painful breakup, she decided to leave the city and start over. She inherited a considerable inheritance from a former foster mother who had been particularly kind to her, and used the money to buy a cottage on the outskirts of Millbrook. Claire was attracted by the pastoral charm of the small town and the promise of a simple life. Upon arriving in Millbrook, Claire quickly attracts the attention of the locals. Her striking looks and big city sophistication make her stand out in the small town. She finds a job consulting for local businesses, using her marketing expertise to help them expand their reach. During one of her consulting gigs, Claire first meets Oliver Holbrook, and an intense attraction develops between the two. In Oliver, Claire sees everything she has always desired: success, stability, and the promise of love. For the first time, she allows herself to hope for a happy ending. As Claire and Oliver begin their secret love affair, she convinces herself that she has finally found her place. However, Claire's fragile sense of security is soon shattered by the news that Oliver is engaged to Taylor, a betrayal that stirs up her deepest fears and insecurities, setting in motion a tragic chain of events that leaves an indelible mark on the small town of Millbrook. As summer turns to fall, the lives of Oliver, Taylor, and Claire become increasingly entangled, caught in a complex web of desire, deceit, and jealousy. Oliver, as always, maneuvers his relationships with both women, showering each with just the right amount of attention and affection to keep them invested in him. He plays the role of loyal fiancé to Tyler, while he and Claire meet in secret at hidden restaurants or her secluded cabin. As time goes on, tensions between Claire and Oliver grow, even though Tyler is unaware of the true nature of their relationship. Tyler's trusting and naive attempts to befriend Claire unknowingly create more opportunities for Oliver and Claire to cross paths. Claire, consumed by her feelings for Oliver and the guilt she feels for betraying Tyler, becomes increasingly emotional. These mood swings do not go unnoticed by the townspeople, who begin to speculate about the reasons behind Claire's apparently erratic behavior. As fall approaches and Oliver and Tyler's wedding date approaches, things get more out of hand. Claire's pleas for Oliver to leave Tyler become more frequent and desperate, while Tyler remains oblivious to the storm brewing around him. On a crisp October morning, Oliver and Tyler's wedding day arrived. It seemed as if the entire town of Millbrook was in attendance. Outside the church, hidden from view but close enough to hear the ceremony in progress, Claire felt every vow of love pierce her heart like a dagger. When the church bells rang, signaling the end of the ceremony, Claire felt something snap inside her. The post-wedding celebrations were joyous, with the entire town celebrating the union of the beloved residents. Tyler danced and laughed surrounded by friends and family, while Oliver continued to play the perfect groom. However, as the night wore on and the champagne flowed, Oliver found his disguise slipping multiple times. As the newlyweds drove off for their honeymoon, no one could have anticipated the dark turn their lives were about to take, for in the shadows, Claire Reeves had already begun to plot her revenge. In the weeks following the wedding, Claire Reeves fell into despair and obsession. The life she had once imagined a future with Oliver was taken away from her, leaving her feeling betrayed and desperate. Her already fragile heart, after years of abandonment and instability, began to collapse under the weight of grief and anger. At first, Claire tried to move on, throwing herself into more work, taking on more consulting projects, and trying to socialize. However, wherever she went, she was reminded of Oliver's happiness with Tyler. The newlyweds were the talk of the town, their happy faces seeming to taunt her around every corner. As her pain deepened, Claire's behavior became increasingly erratic. She began to be late and even miss meetings, and her once refined appearance became slovenly. Neighbors worriedly reported seeing her wandering the streets late at night, talking to herself. However, it was her growing obsession with Tyler that truly marked her descent into madness. Claire began stalking the young teacher, following her to and from get-off work and observing her home from a distance. Claire convinced herself that if she could only understand Tyler and figure out what made her so special in Oliver's eyes, she could win him back. Claire's cabin became a shrine to her obsession, with the walls covered with photos of Tyler cut out of the local newspaper and printed images from social media. She creates complex timelines and diagrams, trying to piece together every detail of Taylor's life and her relationship with Oliver. As time goes on, Claire's fantasies grow darker and she begins imagining scenarios where Taylor isn't there in order to pave the way for herself to win back Oliver's affections. At first, these are just harmless daydreams, such as Taylor moving away or realizing she doesn't love Oliver. Gradually, however, Claire's thoughts turn to murder. She spends hours researching different methods, weighing the pros and cons of each with a cool and almost clinical precision. She develops multiple plans, each more complex than the last, always taking care to cover her tracks and establish an alibi. During this time, Claire maintains intermittent contact with Oliver, their contacts becoming increasingly brief and tense, with Claire vacillating between pleading with him to leave Taylor behind and cold accusations of betrayal. Oliver, uneasy with Claire's growing feelings for her, begins to distance himself from her, unaware that her obsession has taken a dangerous turn. As winter descends on Millbrook, Claire's plan begins to take shape. She chooses a method: fake a traffic accident that leaves no trace of her. In her twisted mind, she convinced herself that eliminating Taylor would not only be good for her, but also a relief for Oliver. She truly believed that he was trapped in an unhappy marriage and that she was liberating him. The night before the plan was to be put into action, Claire stood in front of the mirror and could hardly recognize the woman with the wild eyes in the mirror. For a brief moment, a trace of doubt passed through her mind, but then she remembered the wedding bells and the scene when Oliver kissed his bride, and she re-solidified her resolve. On a foggy Wednesday morning in February, Taylor Tanner Holbrook went out for her usual morning run. The streets were silent, and most of Millbrook's residents were still asleep in their warm beds. Taylor, wearing a bright yellow running jacket and a ponytail, stood out against the gray landscape. Meanwhile, Claire Reeves was waiting, filled with fear and anticipation, sitting in a stolen car at the end of a secluded road, her hands clenched on the steering wheel, her knuckles white. When Taylor appeared in the fog, Claire took a deep breath and started the engine. The next few minutes blurred together with the sound of tires screeching, muffled screams, and crashes. Claire drives away from the scene as if on autopilot, leaving Tyler's shattered body on the side of the road. A jogger finds Tyler an hour later, but it's too late, and despite the efforts of emergency personnel, Tyler's life cannot be saved. The news spreads through Millbrook like wildfire, leaving the town in shock and grief. Shortly after the incident, police initially treat it as a tragic hit-and-run accident, and Claire's carefully planned alibi seems flawless. However, as the investigation progresses, some details begin to reveal flaws. Lisa Montague, the detective in charge of the case, senses that Tyler's death was more than a simple accident, and as she digs deeper, she begins to unravel the web of relationships that led to this tragic event. Meanwhile, Claire watches on, feeling an uneasy mixture of guilt and triumph that she has achieved her goal. Tyler is no longer, and now Oliver is hers. However, as time passes and Oliver remains at his distance, doubt begins to eat away at her. Has she made a terrible mistake? In the following weeks, the town is shrouded in sadness and suspicion. Detective Montague's in-depth investigation of the case has caused ripples in the community. During the interview process, she gradually uncovers the complex interpersonal entanglements hidden beneath the surface, which will eventually reveal the truth and make everyone face the inescapable reality. Oliver and Taylor had argued in the weeks leading up to her death, and financial records show a large number of unexplained withdrawals from their joint account. The detective's attention also turns to Claire, whose unusual behavior in the months leading up to Taylor's death had not gone unnoticed, and whose sudden calm afterward arouses suspicion. Although Claire's alibi seems impenetrable, Detective Montague senses she is hiding something. As winter draws to a close, Claire's initial joy at having eliminated a rival begins to fade, replaced by a growing sense of unease. Despite her expectations, Oliver does not immediately throw himself into her arms after Taylor's death. In fact, he becomes increasingly distant, avoiding her calls and finding excuses to cancel their scheduled meetings. Frustrated and confused, Claire decides to confront Oliver in his office after get-off work. As she approaches the building, she notices a light in his window. Through the window, she sees Oliver in an intimate embrace with a strange woman, a scene that shocks Claire and causes her world to collapse in an instant. At this point, she realizes that everything she has done, murdering an innocent woman and destroying countless lives, was for a man who never really cared about her, and this realization makes her feel extremely desperate. Claire storms into Oliver's office in anger, surprising both him and the strange woman. What follows is a fierce confrontation, in which Claire releases years of pent-up pain and anger, accusing Oliver of using her and manipulating her emotions to get rid of Tyler. Oliver finally reveals cracks in his carefully constructed persona, and instead of denying Claire's accusation, he coldly informs her that she has served her purpose and is no longer needed. He threatens to expose Claire's role in Tyler's death if she doesn't disappear from his life completely. Heartbroken and desperate, Claire flees the office, her mind in turmoil. She realizes the extent to which she has been manipulated by Oliver and her terrible mistake. On her way home, she has no idea that her confrontation has been witnessed by another person, who will soon trigger the final chapter of this tragic story. The woman Claire sees is Olivia Chen, a brilliant young lawyer who has just joined Oliver's firm. Drawn to Oliver's charm and the promise of career advancement, Olivia embarks on a relationship with him. However, unlike Claire, Olivia is not blind to Oliver's true nature. Hiding in an adjacent room during the night of Claire's confrontation with Oliver, Olivia hears every word of their heated argument. She is horrified and disgusted to learn of Oliver's involvement in his wife's death. Over the next few days, Olivia faces a moral dilemma. Although she knows she should tell the police what she has learned, her fear of professional consequences and her own complicity in the relationship makes her hesitate. Her uneasiness grows as she observes Oliver continue to play the role of a grieving widow. Determined to uncover the truth, Olivia begins a secret investigation, poring over Oliver's files and emails, slowly piecing together the extent of his deception. With each new discovery, her resolve grows. Finally, one night, she confronts Oliver with the evidence she has gathered. In his office, she details everything she has discovered, from his manipulation of Claire to his business fraud. When Oliver realizes he is in danger, he tries to silence Olivia with charm and threats, but Olivia is prepared, having secretly recorded their entire conversation, capturing Oliver's implicit confession of guilt. As she turns to hand over the evidence to the police, a panicked and enraged Oliver attacks her, attempting to take the recording device. Unbeknownst to him, however, Olivia, affected by the fate of Taylor Tanner Holbrook, is ready. In her struggle, she pulls a small pistol from her bag, and a gunshot echoes through the empty office building. Oliver Holbrook, who has manipulated so many people and indirectly contributed to the death of his wife and the destruction of Claire Reeves, falls to the ground, while Olivia stands over him, holding the smoking pistol, with a look of shock and dark satisfaction on her face. As sirens sound in the distance, Olivia calmly sits down and waits for the police to arrive. She knows there will be consequences for her actions, but she also knows that the truth will finally come out. Oliver Holbrook's career of deception is over. The gunshot that killed Holbrook rocked Millbrook, setting off a chain reaction that brought to light the truth behind Taylor's death. As Olivia Chen was taken into custody, the truth about Oliver's manipulative behavior began to unravel. In the investigation that followed Holbrook's death, a new round of scrutiny on Taylor's murder took on a new urgency. With the evidence Olivia had gathered, Detective Montague began to piece together the full picture of events over the past year. Tormented by guilt and fear, Claire eventually broke down during questioning and confessed her role in Taylor's death, detailing her actions and motivations. Her testimony painted a picture of the extent of Holbrook's manipulative behavior and his plotting to murder his wife. After admitting to murdering Taylor, Claire was sentenced to life in prison. For Olivia, her case was more complicated, with a manslaughter conviction but a reduced sentence due to the circumstances surrounding Holbrook's death. The tragic story of Holbrook, Taylor Tanner, Claire Reeves, and Olivia Chen will be remembered for years, and is a sobering reminder that darkness can lurk even beneath the most beautiful of surfaces.